Reddit, Saturday Night Live, Rolls-Royce. This is just a sample of the clients that design studio Pentagram has worked with. Widely regarded as one of the best design studios in the world, and rightfully so, Pentagram's work in branding and logo design has reached eyes all across the world, and it is a certainty that their work will end up in design history books. Today we're going to put the spotlight on Pentagram and look at how the studio came to be. We're going to also look at some of my favorite projects from them, and then we're going to take a look at where I think they're headed. But before we get into it, be sure to support the show by giving this episode a like, leaving a comment, and of course by subscribing. This is Ziggy the Designer, the show where we talk about the world of graphic design and the people who make it move. Design is all around us, we might as well talk about it. Pentagram is an independent design studio with offices in New York City, Austin, London, and Berlin. Their website describes themselves as a studio whose work encompasses graphics and identity, strategy and positioning, products and packaging, exhibitions and installations, websites and digital experiences, advertising and communications, data visualizations and typefaces, sound and motion. They are the definition of a multidisciplinary studio. The studio was founded all the way back in 1972, so they've been around for a while. It was founded by Colin Forbes, Alan Fletcher, Mervyn Kurlansky, Theo Crosby, and Kenneth Grange. 5 founding partners, hence the name Pentagram. Now, the goal of the studio from the start has been to be a place where their partners can work independently while also being able to collaborate with each other. And this is really where they stand out, right? They aren't owned by a big conglomerate like WPP or Omnicom. They are entirely independent, being owned by their 22 partners. And their partner roster includes some of the best designers in the game. We're talking about Michael Beirut, Paula Scher, Emily Oberman, Giorgia Lupi, and Eddie Opara. All designers who could easily end up in design history books. And I mean, the works of Michael Beirut and Paula Scher are already being taught in design classes. So what's the big deal with Pentagram? Well, let's get into it. Even though Pentagram is capable of doing many things, really their bread and butter is in that branding and logo design space, and they're some of the best to do it. Their work with Rolls-Royce is a beautiful example. Or how about their work with American Express? And I feel like that's a great look at modernizing a brand without losing its personality. Or how about the MIT Media Lab? One of the best brand systems I've ever seen. But if you want to take a look at a project that encompasses what Pentagram is all about, I feel like there is no better project to look at than their work with the United States Library of Congress. This project was done by Paula Scher's team. And right away, we're met with this Pentagram spirit in that dynamic logo type that we see here, where the word library, it splits up, it expands, it contracts, and it houses images, it houses words. The project page says, Pentagram has designed a new brand identity that captures the spirit of the library and its universal collections in a dynamic logo type that is a metaphor for a bookshelf or bookcase, a place to collect things, and can hold images and typography. I love it. Now, aside from the logo type, the use of images is textbook Paula Scher. Images are used in an almost collage way, which harkens to Scher's off-kilter DIY sensibilities that we've seen in her work with, of course, the Public Theater and with her Maps project. What we get is typography that is very structured, it's very rigid. And then, when you pair it with that image collage style that is very free-flowing, that's really where this project comes to life. And this is peak Pentagram. You have a strong logo that is poetic in how it tells the story of the brand, and that logo is the base for an even stronger brand system. And if you look at the strongest Pentagram projects, the brand system will usually always outshine the logo. Now, obviously, Pentagram has had their misses too. I feel like Pentagram really struggles when they work with tech clients. I mean, Pentagram was behind the latest PayPal rebrand, which I dubbed absolutely useless. right? And they were also behind Yahoo's branding, which was unveiled in 2018, and even then it was outdated. So, every agency will have their misses. That's just the nature of the game. You try to prevent them, but it happens. And when you're producing on a level that Pentagram is producing at, those misses are just going to be amplified a little bit more. So where do I think they'll go from here? I think the biggest question for Pentagram is where they'll go once their stars retire. We can talk about all the other partners all we want, but really Pentagram is led by Michael Bierut and Paula Scher. Bierut has been with Pentagram since 1990, and he's worked on some of the most iconic branding and logo projects in design history. Scher has been there since 1991, and she's been a trailblazer when it comes to creating a space for women in design and when it comes to pushing the boundaries of what graphic design can be. They're both 67 and 76, respectfully. The question of retirement isn't out of the picture here. And once they leave, right, that sort of that gravitas that Pentagram has had for decades is leaving out the door with them. So they need to get a younger partner into the studio that can make up for that loss once time does come for Bierut and Scher to retire. Now I'm looking at Bobby C. Martin to come into Pentagram, who's currently working in-house at Apple. Although he's working full-time with Apple, he still has passive ownership of his agency, Champions Design, out in New York City. So not only does Martin know the New York City design space, and I can promise you he still has design client connections out there, if you look at the work coming out of Champions Design, it feels a lot like what's coming out of Pentagram right now. I mean, look at the work with Carnegie Hall, Dartmouth University, and Girl Scouts of the USA. Martin could single-handedly fill in all of the gaps left by Michael Bierut and Paula Scher. Or how about a little dark horse pick here with Jessica Walsh, who has the branding and logo experience that Pentagram loves to see, who has a positive reputation in the design world, and who has experience running her own design practice with her studio and Walsh. Two big questions with this pick, though, are, one, does she even want to roll at Pentagram if given the opportunity? And two, does she want to suspend her company, which is doing incredible work, right? I don't think she'd want to do that. But if she did, Walsh would be a little bit of an outsider amongst the Pentagram folks, but I think she'd bring in some much needed playfulness to the studio. But how do you feel about Pentagram? Are you a fan? Do you feel they're overrated? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That's all I have for you. Be sure to give this episode a like, subscribe, and share. I've been Ziggy the Designer. If there are two things you need to know about me, it's that 1, I love design, and 2, I'm very opinionated. I'll talk with y'all later. Bye-bye.